Hello, and welcome to the Evident Conspiracy Files.
That climate engineering operations, solar radiation management operations need to be immediately deployed to try to mitigate the warming of our planet, try to preserve what's left of its life support systems. And yet when the public, those that are awake, try to bring to the attention of academia and elected officials that we see climate engineering already being conducted in our skies all over the globe. It's already been deployed. Lab tests prove it. Film footage proves it. Documents prove it. And yet we have the continued denial from the climate science community and official agencies telling us that we're not really seeing what we're seeing in the skies. They tell us if climate engineering were deployed, it would look exactly like what we're seeing in our skies. But then again, they tell us that we're not really seeing what we are actually seeing. The paradox is the more the climate engineers spray the planet, destroy the ozone layer, disrupt the hydrological cycle, and increase the overall warming of the planet, the more they feel they have to ramp these programs up to try to mitigate some of the damage that these programs have done in the first place.
Today we're going to look at cloud seeding, weather modification, and its use in warfare. Lately, many of us over the UK have noticed for the last 5 months there has been a grey blanket of cloud. This has persisted for about 5 months straight, with the odd clear day thrown in. That said, most nights seem to start clear, the moon and even stars can be seen. Over Christmas, New Year, on and off over the UK during January and February, a thick fog has covered the UK. In London, after the New Year celebrations, the NHS had to apologise to its patients for not being able to attend 361 call-outs. While this was reported in the media, there was no mention as to why there was a need for 361 call-outs in one day. However, what people may not be aware is that a thick fog had covered the areas, or some areas in London. It is believed that there may have been heavy chemical spraying by aircraft previously, and due to the low pressures, has allowed these chemicals to drop within the fog, which basically have caused respiratory issues to those on the ground. I want to take you back in time, just after World War II, where even our government in the UK was experimenting with biological and chemical weapons, or potential weapons, for the purpose of warfare. These are now declassified documents, which anyone can obviously go and find, have a look through. I certainly do advise you to, they are certainly interesting. Well, it's with this knowledge is evident that if what is currently going on in our skies are not tests, this must basically even be a silent war that we're currently in, if we consider the fact that they've already carried out their experiments in the past. At the end of the day, we must keep ourselves and our children safe and be aware what is going on. The UK government conducted secret biological and chemical warfare tests on its citizens post-World War II. Basically that was from the 1950s through to the 1970s, at least that's what they've admitted to. E. coli, as well as others, chemicals, bacteria, were used in large area coverage trials between 1961 and 1968, where over 1 million people along the south coast of England were exposed. Some historical context on this. One of the most notable historical examples includes Operation LAC, meaning Large Area Coverage, which was a series of tests conducted by the US Army Chemical Corps in the 1950s. These trials involved dispersing zinc cadmium sulfide particles over large regions of the US and Canada to study the dispersal patterns and geographical range of chemicals and biological agents. Similar tests were also conducted in the UK, where ZNCDS was sprayed over 300 miles across the Irish Sea to stimulate biological agent cloud attacks. zinc cadmium sulfide was dispersed in the air from 1953 until 1964, with notable trials in 1963 over Norwich, where the chemical was sprayed from aircraft. Seressa marcescens, is certainly a hard word to pronounce, basically along with other bacteria were released in the DICE trials in South Dorset between 1971 and 1975. Seressa marcescens is certainly something that is believed to have been sprayed very recently, which was over parts of the UK, which had caused basically breathing difficulties from patients, obviously recently in London and other areas of the UK. That is certainly something that our government have already done, and it's believed that that is still happening today. But obviously the infections, particularly in immune compromised individuals or those with indwelling medical devices, can certainly lead to other things like urinary tract infections, wound infections, respiratory infections, especially in hospital settings, and eye infections like conjunctivitis. These trials were part of a broader programme to understand the effects of biological and chemical agents in case of an attack during the Cold War. The United Kingdom. The UK carried out experiments, particularly at Porton Down, involving the release of biological agents and chemical stimulants like zinc cadmium sulfide. These tests, known as the Dorset Biological Warfare Experiment, among others, were meant to study the dispersal of agents in both urban and rural settings, including significant trials in the London Underground and over the countryside. The UK's experiments also included testing in the Bahamas and Nigeria, with concerns later raised about the ethics and safety of these tests. Some historical context. Biological warfare has roots back to at least the 14th century, with the Mongols reportedly using plague-infected bodies during sieges. Modern use and development peaked around the 20th century with World War II and the Cold War era, where countries like Japan, or precisely Unit 731, and the Soviet Union also conducted extensive research, often with dire human rights violations. Some ethical and health concerns. Many of these tests were conducted without the informed consent of the public or military personnel involved, leading to the ethical debates and health concerns. There have been instances where test subjects, both military and civilian, developed illnesses potentially related to exposure during these tests. Post-exposure, efforts like those by the US Department of Defense to disclose testing information has been criticised for being slow or incomplete, leading to ongoing investigations and compensation claims by veterans and civilians alike. Regulation and treaties. The use of biological and chemical agents in warfare is now heavily regulated by international treaties, like the 1925 Geneva Protocol and the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention, which aims to eliminate such weapons. However, historical testing has often been justified under the umbrella of defensive research, which these treaties do still allow. Years ago, I had heard about the United States testing on their own civilians. I never actually thought, before I started doing a little bit of digging, a bit of research, that the UK would have experimented on us, especially even here in Wiltshire. Areas where obviously sprayed with these chemicals, declassified documents. Obviously, we are looking 50 plus years ago. Anything that is going on today, again, would be under that umbrella of secrecy. Whether that be for, at the moment we're going through different wars, and including even climate change. Obviously, we're under the eco agenda, and such things as even on GB News recently has come out with we need to obviously test every possibility with geo-engineering, anything that can reflect the solar energy from the sun to help cool the earth. Look at that as you will. Now I'm just going to show you a clip. There's several of them, obviously all available online, but it does also show that a lot of people are starting to wake up. They're just simply looking out the window 5 months down the line of just having grey smog over the UK, and people are talking about it. Whether you agree or disagree, people are talking about it.
I think there is evidence of weather manipulation in the UK, and we all over this summer have seen lines across the sky. Loads of people see it. People are reporting it. People are waking up. People are noticing that something's not right. Something's changed. Something's different. And we see that with our own eyes. And that is evidence that something is different. Something feels off about it. And the weather, it's felt weird. And you can start off with a nice clear sky, and then you see the lines, and then eventually it forms this high mist, and they're not even in flight path. Like, I live behind the Manchester flight path. It always goes the same way year on year, and now the lines are just going all over the place. That isn't the lines into Manchester Airport. So that is weird. That is different. And there are companies in the UK that are linked, like someone found the business information. There are UK companies that are specialised in aviation for this purpose. So I believe that there is some kind of weather manipulation. It is going on. There have even been news reports where they've mentioned it. The reasons why they want to manipulate the weather, there's so many different reasons why. And I've talked about it before. And I don't really think that we should just rely on what we read in the news. Like, if BBC News says there is no weather manipulation, if Google says there's no weather manipulation in the UK, I wouldn't necessarily believe that that is trustworthy, because we're lied to all the time. Once you realise that we're being lied to about loads of things, then it becomes quite plausible that we would be lied to about this, because there are so many lies. The lies run so deep, and the deception runs so deep, and people are learning to trust their own instincts and their own judgment now.
Even looking at the sky behind her, you can obviously clearly see it's just grey, smog, no evil looking clouds that are about to pout down. There's definitely something going on. There are so many videos out there of people talking out what's around them, people falling ill. We've got, potentially foot and mouth in the UK coming straight back on scene, getting ready to cull a load of animals. And I think we really do need to be asking questions, and even getting to a point of contacting your MP, putting for information requests, maybe into the Met Office for weather modification experiments. We do know that there are some forms, whistleblowers if you like, that have basically come out to basically say as soon as a program is being implemented, they do update the Met Office, etc., UK, RI, and update them to basically let them know even what the weather's going to be like, if we've got X amount of days of cloud, etc. So it's certainly interesting, and we do need to really look what's going on around us today, especially where we can access so much information like this now, share views, get as much fact and evidence as we can, and even people that might even be involved, get them to come out, talk about it, and yeah, we need to do something. We need to pull together. Obviously, we've just tapped on foot and mouth as well. I'm going to show another quick clip. Again, easily searchable online. Basically, from what this chap's saying about foot and mouth animals, the UK's response, yada yada. Also in the video, just again look at the sheer depth of the colour of the sky. It is starting to become evident there is an agenda afoot to do with our government. Someone somewhere certainly knows a lot more what is going on. So let's have a quick look at this.
Hey folks, been hearing some rumours that we might be due another foot and mouth outbreak, which is slightly worrying. Apparently marksmen are being rounded up and timber yards are being put on standby with lots of wood. So for anyone who doesn't know, foot and mouth is a rather horrendous disease that affects cloven hoofed animals, so cattle, sheep, goats, etc. And yeah, last time I had a foot and mouth outbreak was 2000, well 2001 officially, but we all know it happened in 2000, so 24 years ago. Now, last time it was absolutely disastrous for the farming industry. Now we've already got a Labour government which are currently trying to kill off farming, obviously. If they're already preparing for this, then either they know something we don't, or they're planning to reintroduce foot and mouth, which I wouldn't put past this government, because let's face it, they are a bunch of lying scumbags. So, worrying times ahead. And for anyone who is under the age of 24, last time it was horrendous. I mean, foot and mouth doesn't just kill, hang on, get the style, doesn't just kill, well it doesn't kill, but cattle and sheep aren't the only ones killed. They kill all the animals on the farm, chickens, ducks, etc. Cats, dogs, everything goes. And then the surrounding farms are also culled, but not the wildlife, not the cute fluffy foxes or bunny rabbits or adorable little badgers. No, they survive. Just farm animals. So, worryingly, Keir Starmer might get his way and actually finish farming off for good. Although, if they succeed in that, good luck to any Labour MP setting foot in the countryside. Because, yeah, us farmers won't be happy to see you. Let's put it that way. So yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed that this is all just a bit of a hoax. Because it's bloody frightening if it's true. Anyway, bye for now.
So yeah, even based on that, when you look at Keir Starmer, he's a member of the WEF. Well, so's our king. Pretty much every prime minister we've had, many MPs. Many companies have signed up to the WEF. For anyone that doesn't know, that's the World Economic Forum. And they're basically unelected globalists that want everything from a look at the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. They want to mandate all that, digital IDs, etc. But even when you look into this, like foot and mouth, obviously disease, bacterias. It does seem plausible that some experiments might go on, that the government know they're spraying X amount of chemicals like they've done in the past. They're going to be well aware, especially if they're targeting farm areas where cattle, for example, fall ill. And at the same time, when you look at in the government, a lot of the meat industry, there's talks now about everything from putting labels of how bad it is for your not just for your health, but for the environment. And we've got all these fake meats coming out. We've now hearing about all the lab-grown meats, eating bugs, increasing that to get your proteins. Which, if you think about it, even people struggling for money, you get a lot of protein from the basic value eggs. Well, they're pretty much going to be gone or going up in price as soon as a lot of these animals are killed, basically. And as you say, in the environment, apparently foot and mouth doesn't affect the badgers and things like that. It's just the cattle that we have. And especially then when you start hearing stories of, you say you've got a couple of chickens that are affected that need to be culled, well, that same farm might half a mile down a road have another load of them, well, because it's part of the same farm, well, they need to be coaled off as well. But there's definitely something going on from the sheer amount of people that are falling ill, animals, different diseases. The UK is not the only one affected, so with the EU. Pretty much every member state is going through something very similar to us at the moment. Even parts of the US have had mysterious fog illnesses related at the same time, and more so affecting people that are already ill. So there's something. So we'll keep looking for information. To share and wake up as many people as possible. Not saying that anyone has to believe directly anything, but just keep your mind open. And it's that knowledge is power. So don't be a sheep, stray from the herd. Now, in regard to that fog that we've had here, people falling ill, and obviously we've already touched on the government using Serratia marcescens, a word that apparently I really struggle to say, which is basically bacteria, respiratory infections, etc. We've seen our rates in the UK skyrocket, and it's certainly around times of when that fog's dropped, and even without that, even if we look at a distance now, it might seem fairly clear, but smoggy sky, but you look into the distance, no rain, but all the time you have a mist of stuff that you're just looking through for miles, and it's basically like a fog. No matter how far you travel, even down the motorway or whatever, you're never directly in that fog, but it's that build-up of particles, those particles we cannot see. And I've even done a test myself with a night vision monocular. With that, it's nice and dry, not overly cold, no rain, no nothing. Go out at night, use a normal camera, even obviously your own eyesight, can't see anything. As soon as you flick on night vision, it's almost like a very fine flurry of snow, something that is constantly falling down from the atmosphere. You can blow over it and you see it all mix up on the display of that night vision camera. So I'm going to quickly play another clip, obviously bearing that in mind. It's only about a minute, but it does touch on some very good points, and bearing in mind this is in the States and initially was recorded on the 3rd of February 2025.
Fog is back, and it does not seem like your typical fog. In fact, a private lab recently tested the fog and found that it was loaded with Serratia marcescens, a type of bacteria. Coincidence? Maybe. Except in the 1950s, the Navy conducted biological warfare experiments off the coast of San Francisco, where they released, can you guess it? Serratia marcescens and other bacteria into the air to see how it spread in populated areas. A lawyer released Army documents obtained under the Freedom of Information Act describing a 1950 test in which a bacteria cloud sprayed from a ship off the Golden Gate wafted inland to cover the entire Bay Area. And what are the side effects of exposure to this bacteria? Respiratory infections, which were suspiciously common after being exposed to the fog, pneumonia, gastrointestinal issues, just to name a few. And you think experiments on citizens really stopped 50 years ago? Okay.
What do you think? Experiments stopped? Or are governments even ramping up those experiments? Or have they already done their experiments and now there really is a control on population? I mean, we could go into the COVID era jabs that suspiciously changed from just normal vaccines to mRNA, so that's messenger RNA based jabs. There's more coming out about that now, where actually it wasn't just the Pfizer ones that were giving blood clots to people and sadly strokes and heart attacks, etc. But a lot of the others, like Pfizer, are now causing major issues with people. But so much of that has been swept under the carpet. And if you actually look into it, just the vaxxed people that have been, triple vaxxed and above, there's over 60 million unknown causes of death in those vaxxed people. So over 60 million deaths. that is so many more deaths than after World War II. So by the time World War II had finished, more people have died in just this short space of time, and not even dying directly of COVID, but dying of unknown issues, but they're only present in those that have been vaccinated. So is it possible, even with the weather at the moment, there is that control on population? Are we slowly being poisoned, but to such a degree that even like now, people simply won't believe it because it just seems so ridiculous. But at the same time, you can go back so many years, and even now, like today's politicians, but politicians of the time, or people like Bill Gates, like the Gates Foundation, basically saying that we do need to control population. That's even back in the 80s, because it gets to the point where you just can't cope with any more people. So is this an overall plan to maybe even implement Agenda 2030? Does that start in 2025, where you start knocking off people ready for that time? It's interesting, and again, we just need more information, stay awake, take that on board, and speak to as many people as we can and really get the truth. And here we have a cloud that seems to be forming just off of the Gulf of Mexico. So this is a satellite image, and you can sort of see the formation of that cloud. Yes, okay, you could always argue there could be fire or whatever, oil rig maybe that's exploded. But the more attention we pay into that, you can clearly see that is creating and gathering a full cloud that with the jet stream is blowing over particular areas of that country. So it could well be that we're not even just dealing with aircrafts that are manipulating the weather. A lot of this could also be coming from offshore, where certain chemicals, gases are being pumped into the very air that we breathe. If you think of all that rains down onto farmland, contamination of foods as well as animals, waterways, not just waterways with, say, freshwater fish, the water directly we're consuming. If you start looking at potential agendas, how would you do it? Again, you make it so ridiculously stupid for people to believe. It's so easy to get away with it right in front of people's face. And all you need to do is throw out the term, you're a conspiracy theorist. Even other people that might have had their mind opening up to the possibility, they're all, no, I don't want to be called that now. It's stupid. It ain't going to happen in my time. If it's going to happen, it'll happen in a couple of generations down the road. That's when they'll start poisoning us all. Not now. Nay. What are they going to do up the fluoride level in your water? Yeah, people have gone downhill a bit, haven't they, mentally? You've recently done studies even with that, with children. Yeah, keep fluoride away from your kids. There are also many patents for many different areas in regards to weather modification. Can be known as obviously Geo-engineering. We're all obviously aware of cloud forming in areas where they don't have much rain. There's certain materials that can also be used to increase the temperature where the water actually starts to freeze, which builds up moisture to allow heavy rainfall in certain areas that might be suffering a drought. Whilst obviously that is understandable, even not that long ago in Dubai, they had obviously put their hands up, admitted they had overdone it, had a year's worth of rain in one day, was causing massive floods, etc. Some of the patents for some of the items, including aircraft, we know there are some that are modified for the amount of forest fires, where these aircraft are obviously sent out. and obviously spread such a chemical to help prevent the fire spreading. You have other ones for oil spills, and a lot of them are multi-purpose, and obviously we don't know how much of these have been modified for particularly modifying today's weather, spraying chemicals, etc. And a lot of this probably will be classified for quite some time. Geo-engineeringwatch.org do have documentaries, videos. I certainly would recommend watching some of it. I will quickly play a clip, and obviously they give some designs, roughly what's going on, just to cast your eyes on it, and obviously do feel free to go on there and watch the entire thing. It certainly is interesting.
Perhaps the greatest lie ever perpetrated on populations all over the world is the condensation trail lie. What we're seeing in our skies is not condensation. It's sprayed particulate dispersions, with very few exceptions.
They shouldn't be there. Jet engines burn clean. So if there's anything coming out of them, it's an additive.
They're absolutely not contrails. Contrails do not linger, dissipate, and go into cloud coverage, period, in the report.
And I kept saying to people, what is this? Because now the sky is no longer blue. It's starting to turn gray. And what I found was kind of like it was not socially acceptable. We're all going to pretend this is not really happening. And I thought, oh, this is very bad.
Most are unfamiliar with the science term called global dimming. That term refers to the amount of direct sunlight that no longer reaches the surface of the planet due to light scattering particles that are building up in the atmosphere. And although many of these particles are from industrialized pollution, the larger majority are from the ongoing climate engineering solar radiation management operations. This engine, a high bypass turbofan jet engine, this is the engine that is on all military tankers and all commercial carriers, is in essence a jet-powered fan. 90% of the air that moves through this engine is non-combustion. This engine, by design, is nearly incapable of producing any condensation trail except under rare and extreme circumstances. And again, we have film footage of aircraft flying at altitude with nozzles visible, turning on and off. That is the end of the argument. Since even before man could fly, there was an effort to try to modify the weather. We have weather modification patents going back 100 years plus. These are historical films of what can be done with a biplane, a small biplane that carries a very small payload. And that much can be done. How much more can a fully loaded military tanker, KC-10, KC-135, C-17 Globemaster, how much more material can they put in the air? About 500 times more with a single tanker. In regard to the condensation trail narrative, many refer back to the trails left by World War II bombers as proof that we are only seeing condensation trails in our skies. But Geo-engineeringwatch.org found on military archives film footage, which we posted, of World War II B-17s at altitude, turning off a sprayed dispersion. We know that climate engineering was deployed immediately after World War II, so testing was absolutely ongoing. Clearly, these bombers were used for beta testing. Film footage proves it.
Weather was a weapon used over Vietnam. Would you expect that to be then deleted from the availability? No. To continue to expand the scientific aspects of it, to have it available in your portfolio of weapons, would be a natural process. Therefore, should you expect that it is available on demand to have the ability to modify weather? Absolutely, within this country and others.
Well, what do you believe? 5 to 6 months in the UK, we've had nothing, not even clouds, just smog. The odd couple of days it starts breaking up, and then you start seeing planes flying across. Even over the summer last year, sat in the garden, as many people do when you're not working. So it gets to the weekend, the sun's out, it's nice, you've gone somewhere, you come home, you chill, you might think, the weather's nice, have a beer, sit back, relax in the garden, speak to your missus, play with your kids, yada yada. See planes come across, dispersing something in the air. Okay, fair enough, I'm just sitting there. You watch it. Okay, well, contrails generally don't last any more between 1 to 3 minutes, depending on the exact altitude, the temperature. But overall, if it's during the day, the solar radiation alone is enough to just melt, disperse that initial ice build-up that we can see. When you're just sitting there watching it, and it's slowly filling the sky, and it's just depleting what you can see. Amount of X marks. There's so many videos. I'm sure people have seen them, whether that be on Facebook, on X, other platforms, pictures you've taken yourself. It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's fact. It's evident. But we're not told the whole picture. We don't know exactly why, especially in the UK at the moment, that we have suffered so much of this smog. It's obviously affecting farmland, it's affecting our health. Vitamin D, the natural vitamin D you get from the sun, is so much better than eating foods with vitamin D. Still healthy for you. And even then, just directly your mood. We see the sun, we all know what it's like to stand on a beach, the sun's beating on you, and you just feel so relaxed, content, and healthier and happier in yourself. When it's, doom and gloom all the time, you go out, the wind's blowing, it's raining, it's just grey, it's dull, you can't really do anything, you're just miserable. That has an impact on your health as well. Plus you're not getting the vitamins, the intake. Obviously the crops at the moment, I don't know what it's going to be in the next sort of year, what's yielded, because even in the winter alone, the UK, we generally have good spells of sun. It might be cold or whatever, but photosynthesis for plants, all that's going. So certainly go on to geoengineeringwatch.org, and there's obviously other videos, context, and there's generally so much. So yeah.
Under Freedom of Information, there was a 40-page report, of which half the pages were completely blank, and the other half had a lot of blank outs. But there was sufficient information to tell me that, they're aware. They call it geoengineering.
One of the big problems is that when we find some new technology, we get all excited by it, by the potential benefits of that technology, and often implement it and use the technology before we have any idea of the negative effects.
Shouldn't it be considered that every breath we take is laden with highly toxic particles that are wreaking havoc in our own bodies? Particles that aren't being reported by any air quality testing systems. Any official air quality testing are looking for PM10 or PM2.5, 2.5 microns at best. These smaller, they go virtually unreported.
These nanomaterials generate reactive oxygen species in biological materials, damage tissue, lead to advanced aging, cause cancer, causative agents of dementia. So, we might think that we're doing something positive for humanity to save our species, but we're also poisoning ourselves.
Eventually, with the team that we formed at Geo-engineering.org, we were able to acquire a NOAA flying lab. We were able to test at altitude to confirm the elements that were showing up at the surface.
Our intention was to do a point-to-point sampling mission. We could see these obvious patterns that were being laid out in the sky. We were really thankful for the opportunity to be able to get up to altitude. And on the return mission, we noticed that that cloud layer had descended. And we sampled below the cloud layer, we sampled through that confluent layer and above it.
We found exactly the same elements listed in climate engineering patents. Same elements we found on countless surface tests of precipitation from all over the globe.
Some of the smaller particles in here we're looking at on the order of about 450 nanometers long. But there's also smaller particles in there too. This particle seems to be high in aluminum. So look at that.
Governments all over the globe and the entire climate science community are telling the population urgently